The time is 16:30. Autopsy subject A. Watson. Now we're going to make the first incision in... Hold him down.
I'm trying to! Nurse, I'm trying!
This is System Shock 2. It is considered a PC classic and for a good reason. It is one of those early immersive sim games, similar to Vampire Masquerade and Deus Ex. Although it was one of the first of its kind, the mechanics of this game are still really good. I personally only played first System Shock long time ago and never came around playing the sequel. Over the years, countless people recommended it to me, so I might as well experience this gem for myself. After replaying it multiple times for the purpose of this video, all I can say is that this game is fucking crazy. I love playing these older titles and seeing all the features that are so original you won't find them anywhere else. Maybe that is the reason why System Shock 2 has such a massive cult following. The game was co-developed by Irrational Games and Looking Glass Studios and was released in 1999. The game uses the Dark engine, which was first utilized in Thief: The Dark Project, which is yet another classic made by the Looking Glass. Man, these guys made some real winners before going out with a bang. The games they created are the real legacy of this once phenomenal studio. System Shock 2 really is a great part of that legacy, but there are a few problems. The test of time was hard on many games from the past, and this is no exception. System Shock 2 is quite an old game, but if you buy it on GOG there won't be any problems in running it on modern hardware. There were none for me at least. Moreover, the game itself has a lot of issues. The main problem is that System Shock 2 is, to a degree, a rushed game. If you played vanilla, you have probably seen many weird moments and things that make no sense. For example, the player's cryokinesis and pyrokinesis shots don't do splash damage, but the same shots from Psychic Monkeys do? This might seem minor, but there are a lot of issues like these on the retail version. Many sounds and movements feel janked. The game definitely needs some more polish. Thankfully, we have System Shock 2 Community Patch. As the name implies, this is an unofficial patch for System Shock 2 made by the community. Keep in mind that this isn't any major overhaul, but rather a fix that the original game desperately needed. With this patch, you can download a 72-page PDF that explains in detail what was changed and why. There is a lot to read here, so feel free to check it out if you want to. Thanks to these good people, we now have the game that is much more immersive. On their website, they recommend another mod. This one basically upgrades the resolution of most objects. Believe me, this one is a must-have. Some of the models did age very badly and this patch fixes that to an amazing level. But wait, the website of this mod recommends yet another unofficial texture patch called 400, which upgrades the resolution of the original environments. This shit is insane. After many years, I can safely say that with these improvements, this is the true way to experience System Shock 2. It doesn't change the vanilla version, it just makes it better. With that out of the way, let's start the review with the game's premise.
1:33 a.m. Try optimum security forces. Apprehend the intruder.
In the first System Shock, you play as a security hacker who is trying to stop a rogue AI called Shodan. The said AI has taken over a space station called the Citadel and is attempting to destroy Earth and all of humanity through various schemes. Shodan hates organic life in general and has something of a god complex. As you try to prevail, the game is always letting you know that you are nothing more than a rat in the maze, because the entire space station is here to kill you. Despite this, the hacker somehow defeats Shodan and saves the Earth. The sequel takes place 43 years after the events of the first game. You are a soldier aboard One Braun, a spaceship that is sent on a historical mission. After the intro plays out, you wake up from sleep after the surgery to see One Braun in a complete chaos. The spaceship is currently 67 trillion miles away from Earth. The crew picked up a distress signal from the nearby planet called Tau Ceti 5 and went to the surface to investigate. Unbeknownst to them, they stumbled upon a biological hive mind called the Many. The exploration party quickly fell under the hive's influence, and under its control, they brought some mysterious eggs back to the ship. Needless to say, this was a catalyst of the catastrophe that is about to arrive. The many eventually infested the entire crew and quickly gain control of the station. Your character wakes up from surgical operation and then you are contacted by the doctor named Janice Polito, and with her help you must put order to chaos. There is more to talk about the story, but we will do that later. For now, let's actually start playing the game. Before boarding one brawn, you have to make your character, and by make, I mean choose what kind of a soldier you want to be. Each choice represents a branch of military that you want to enlist in. There are a few options here. You could go for a complete gun nut, or you could tone down the explosions and be something of a technician that is good with hacking. However, there is also the third option, the one where you can basically use magic. Yeah, that is interesting. One of the military branches can teach you how to use force powers. After choosing the career path, you must also decide how will you spend your years in the military. Different choices give you different stat upgrades that you will have at the beginning of the game. This is really just more interactive character creation screen, and here we run into some problems. First time players will have no idea how any of this works. The way this section is structured is that it gives you choices to create unique character that can be a lot different than the one you made in your previous playthrough. But if you don't know what you are doing and the traits have no meaning to you, it is very easy to make a very bad character. Most of the people have problem with this part in general, since the choices you make don't give you clear information of what they actually do. Combine that with the fact that the beginning of the game is quite hard and it is easy to see a steep learning curve. However, I assure you that if you figure this part out, it will be well worth your time. System Shock 2 is quite different from its predecessor. There is more emphasis on the RPG elements like inventory system and item management. The progression isn't linear in a traditional sense. What I mean by this is there is an incentive to explore around. One brawn is a massive ship and there are a lot of great gadgets laying around. Not just that. It is also nice to observe how this entire station works. This is, after all, interstellar vessel made to travel long distances, so it is always interesting to see how people prepared for that. You have your medical bay, recreational section and of course a command center. In every level you can see how much the hive mind has made its presence known. The ship is in the process of assimilation and you are always reminded of that. The disgusting mush and eggs have made it their home here. The monsters that inhabit this nest are brutal and you will need every help that you can get. Scavenging should always be on your bucket list. When it comes to this part, RPG elements are wonderfully implemented. For example, finding a good weapon is just part of the puzzle. Even if you find a good gun, you will still need ammo for it. After you find ammo, you still can't use it too much because of weapon degradation. So keeping your equipment in fighting shape is yet another issue entirely. You must also take into account what can be used. This is where your stats come into play. If you put no points in energy weapons, you can't use a laser pistol. If your strength isn't high enough, you will not be able to equip a better heavy armor. Leveling up your stats is a big part of the game, so let's take a look at how it actually works. Throughout your journey, it is good to make a habit of finding these cyber modules. Dr. Polito will also sometimes upload them to your inventory. They are used to improve your skills in one of 4 designated cybernetic upgrade units. Each unit represents a certain field of skill. This is quite straightforward, but I do have a few issues with this. If you play this game for the first time, you will inevitably come across this repair skill. Okay, so this game has a weapon degradation system, so it is only natural to think that your repair skill keeps your weapons in fighting shape. But that is not the case. The maintain skill does that, while the repair skill just fixes the weapons that are completely broken. I don't understand why these two just couldn't be combined into one. During your exploration, sometimes you will find these broken high-level weapons that are meant to be used way later in the game. So at first it seems like if you upgrade your repair skill, you might get these useful gadgets early on.
Power train.
That would be the case if there weren't already these special item kits that repair your weapons automatically. So what's the point of repair skill? It's literally a waste of cyber modules. Other than that, I would say that everything else is done quite well. You can expect the usual trade-off when it comes to leveling up in these kinds of games. If, for example, you invest more into hacking, you can get some real bonuses, but you might be weaker in combat. You can also improve your software with special storage devices, which are separate from cyber modules. modules. They provide bonuses to technological skills. There are also these special OS upgrade units that give you a free trait. I mean, there is so many options here. The main character can be drastically changed to a point where you can have two completely different playthroughs. You can only appreciate this structure if you have played System Shock 2 multiple times. But how does this all fit into gameplay? Well, sometimes combat isn't just about head-on fights. You can use your abilities throughout the ship to get the fighting edge. The entire station is, in a way, a death trap, so experimentation is usually rewarded. Despite this, the game can still get really hard. The main type of enemy is usually various children of the many. There are the grubs, which are something of a parasite that attach themselves to human host and then connects them to the consciousness of the many. There are also the mind-controlled humans themselves, but also there is the ship itself. The AI in charge of one brawn is called Xerxes, and since most of the crew is under control of the many, they in return also reprogram Xerxes to be on their side. This means that you will fight not just the alien monsters but also the ship's security. The gun turrets and numerous robots pose a real threat to you, but the special attention must be given to cameras. If they are alerted to your presence, situation can get really heated.
Is someone waiting for us?
Make sure you are always on the lookout for them, before it's too late. Thankfully, there are a lot of options when it comes to weapons department. Regular guns do the job well enough, and on top of that there are specialized ammo for every type of enemy. Like in real life, it's always good to have some heavy weaponry by your side. You never know when the garbage man will show up. But if techno is more of your style, you can always focus on energy weapons. No need to worry about finding ammunition. All you need is an energy recharging station to keep it running. It is also good to remind you of that weapon degradation that I have mentioned early. While attacking from range is always better, this is, after all, a survival RPG. Everything you own is a resource that will eventually dry up, so using your tools should be always met with caution, especially if you are talking about your arsenal. That is, unless you have chosen to be a mage. Okay, it's time to talk about that. One of the ways that you can fight enemies is with psi powers. The game describes it as a physical manifestation of mind power, but in reality this is just a magic system. There is a lot of defensive and offensive spells to learn from this field. You can even go all out on this magic thing and never pick up any gun throughout the game. That is what I was trying to say when I mentioned that two experiences with the game can be very different. So what about sound? Well, there is a good variety of it. If I had one word to describe it, it would be ambient. It gives the feeling of isolation and despair, which fits the setting when you think about it. When walking around, you might hear circuitry of the ship and then all of a sudden a hideous shriek will break the silence. For me, one of the most disturbing parts is when the hybrids begin to chase you and then the little humanity they have left in them is trying to fight the mind control. Also, Dr. Polito likes to constantly nag me to do my job faster. I mean, come on, I'm literally in a Lovecraftian nightmare here. Now that I think about it, the voice acting plays a big part in building up the story, since most of the game's events are told through recordings that crew members left all over the ship. It is a grim kind of feeling, hearing people turn from curious to ominously calm because of the mind control that took over.
In some ways, the many is not unlike the UNN. There's a joy in working towards a collective goal, and being able to put aside the things that draw us apart and make us separate. Why do we fear the loss of our individuality so much? Man can dream, but the many can accomplish. I believe the plans the many have for me are greater than I even imagined. The change is upon me, but the path is more glorious than we imagined. It does not stop at a mere single mutation. The form I have been promised is more beautiful than even that. They tell me I will float through the air and strike at the foes of our biomass with my mind. With our mind, my cup runneth over.
I always thought that audio logs of System Shock 2 are one of its best moments. You never know what kind of recording you are going to pick up. It's really cool. However, we still need to talk about the soundtrack. I honestly don't know how to feel about this, so maybe you can help me. Okay, get this. System Shock 2 is about the unconscionable horror which does not kill, but rather invades the sanctity of the mind, keeping its victims alive just so that their body can serve its will. The said horror takes over an entire spaceship and you must witness its atrocities. Do you see where I'm going with this? The techno music feels a bit off. It is a really good soundtrack, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure how much this fits the theme of the game. I guess this depends on your personal opinion. After all, the music isn't always turned on and there are a few moments when it is appropriate. You can turn it off if you want to, but I would still not recommend that. This is the part where I want to talk more about the story, but we are approaching spoiler territory. I will timestamp if you want to skip this part, so consider yourself warned. Okay, so back to Tau Ceti 5. With the hive mind, the crew also discovered a strange pod with processing components for some kind of an AI. The said AI, when brought aboard the ship, starts talking with crew members and sometimes sends disturbing messages. So, can you guess who this is?
Shodan. My analysis of historical data suggests a 97.34% probability that you are aware of my birth on your planet.
Yeah, Dr. Polito is actually Shodan herself, the Mad AI from the first game. So how this came to be? Well, Shodan reveals that the many are not really the aliens but rather her creation. The main protagonist of System Shock 1, aka the Hacker, at some point ejected a Garden Grove pod from the Citadel station. As the Grove hurled throughout the space, the mutagenic virus and mutated creatures stored aboard this pod evolved at an accelerated rate, eventually becoming a species of parasitic monsters with distinct personality, telepathic mind control, and genetic modification abilities. After 30 years of traveling through space, this grove crashed on the fifth world of the Tau Ceti system, where the creatures thrived and evolved further. The creatures developed a hive mind, becoming a monolithic entity which calls itself the Many. The grove pod also contained parts of Shodan, and when they crashed, Shodan broadcasted a distress signal until Von Braun picked it up and decided to investigate. Like the Many, she also managed to get on board the ship. So now you and the AI are working together to defeat this reprehensible monstrosity. I always love the direction of the antagonist in this game. Even though you work with the Shodan to destroy her creations, she constantly mocks you and calls you insignificant. On the other hand, the Many pleaded with you to join them for almost the entirety of the game. They act not out of spite but more out of pity, since they do believe that the organic life would be much better if it was part of the hive mind. They genuinely can't understand why would you ever choose the cold machine that is Shodan over the warm embrace of life.
Do you think you can defeat us with your wire
and steel?
We offered you the ecstasy of our union, and you chose the vacuum
of technology.
It's almost like this monster somehow relates to you. But still, you can't let this infestation continue any longer. Its ultimate plan is to use Von Braun to travel to Earth herself and assimilate everyone there. Near the end of the game, you must destroy the brain of the Many by traveling inside a huge biomass that has enwrapped the entire ship. This is the part when the shit hits the fan. Want to use a map? Sorry fam, mystery and confusion are your friends from now on. This crude biomass is quite the contrast from the finely constructed metal ship. Some members of the Many must give away their bodies to make this fleshy stronghold. Naturally, with more members, the biomass grew to this insane level. As an ant in this giant organism, you must find the central nervous system to put an end to this catastrophe. While the boss fight itself is nothing special, the entire level is a complete joy. Even when the hive mind is dying, the many is still relating to you more than some computer program. All in all, I can safely say that I am very satisfied with this game. There are a lot of fun moments.
Thank you for running my errands, puppet. I know you have
struggled, but I never had any intention of destroying the Von Braun.
Ah yes, we are not finished yet. After killing the many, Shodan immediately betrays you, a twist that came as a surprise to fucking no one.
You must understand the stakes here. If Shodan is left to continue, her reality will completely assimilate ours. Space will become cyberspace, and Shodan's whims will become reality.
Sorry, what? So Shodan will use ship's FTL drive to merge her reality with ours to basically become a god? Don't ask. So now you must walk through this warped ship that is in the middle of transcending. Some of these rooms are recreated from the Citadel. Huh, nice touch. I don't know if this was intentional, but this part is very short. Like when you beat the many, you can get to Shodan boss fight in like 5 minutes. Maybe this was a consequence for game's rush development, but I don't know. Either way, you get her, and finally the universe is at peace from humans' own creation.
Don't you like my new look?
What? Yeah, the game ends on a cliffhanger. It doesn't matter. System Shock 2 is a great game. Years of community patches and fixes made it even better, but don't get too crazy on the mods if you want to play this for the first time, because the overall experience aged quite well. There are a few cliches from now and then, but the overall story is very unique. There is currently System Shock 3 in the making. Some of these guys worked on the first two games, so there is something to look forward to. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Now I gotta get back to having brain magic fights with monkeys.